Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. What I have for you guys today is week number 23 of our championship score predictions, guys. And I've got to say, before we get into our score predictions for this week, guys, we have a cracker of a week in the championship, guys. We've got some massive games going on this week. We've got some massive games at the top. We've got some local derbies to talk about, and this could be a massive weekend in terms of how the championship turns out at the end of it. So if you've not seen this series before, let me briefly explain how it all goes down. So every week I give you guys my championship score predictions for what I think the results will be with each game going on in the championship. FIFA 17 also makes their predictions, but what I'm really interested to know is what you guys have to say. So in the description down below, I'll leave all the fixtures that are taking place this weekend in the championship, and then I want you guys to go ahead and make your predictions. And then if you do get any of your scorelines right, I will include your comment in the next video. And speaking of the next video, guys, I will include your comments on screen now if any of you did manage to guess any of the midweek scorelines. And fair play to everyone who got a scoreline right in midweek, because to be honest, it was a pretty hard one to predict in my opinion. You know, we had quite a few upsets going on in there. You know, we had the Huddersfield game against Brighton. That was a real upset. You know, I mean, Huddersfield have been great, but a fantastic result for them. We had Newcastle dropping points as well. So really a lot of things going on all around the table, and this week we're hoping for more of the same. So into our first game we have to talk about, guys. We have the game taking place tonight, which is the one taking place on Sky between Wigan Athletic and Sheffield Wednesday. And this is actually quite a hard encounter to actually predict. Despite both these sides being in opposing ends of the table, I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as just a Sheffield Wednesday win. I mean, we've seen so far this season when they've come up against teams where they really should be winning, and they've, I don't know, not really bottled it, but just not putting the performance that they're capable of. I mean, we saw it against Bristol City last time out. So for this game against Wigan, I do think that they'll make it quite tricky for them, and I see this one being a fairly low score as well. I think Wigan will try to nullify Sheffield Wednesday's attacks going forward. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw for this game. I think it could be quite a cagey affair, and of course Wigan having done a lot of new signings which they'll be hoping to impress, but FIFA's actually said that this one is going to be a 0-0 draw. And then for our next game, guys, we have Michael Preston North End, who are coming up against Barnsley away from home. And once again, this is actually quite a difficult match to predict, because Preston have been a side lately which, I don't know, it's not really the best of times for Preston at this point in time. Our last two performances really haven't been anything to shout about against Ipswich and Cardiff, but really that's quite a funny one really, because it wasn't too long ago since we had that fantastic victory against Brighton at home. So we all know what this Preston side is capable of. It just seems that at this point in time things aren't just clicking for Preston, especially going forward. However, Barnsley, I mean, Barnsley being very good this season, I'm not taking anything away from them, but both these sides are coming into this game off a defeat in midweek, so this could be a difficult match. So I'm going to go ahead and back another 1-1 draw for this game, although if I had to back a side, I'd probably back Barnsley for it. I'm not feeling too confident going into this one, whereas FIFA is backing a Barnsley 1-0 victory. Then for our next game, guys, we have Birmingham, who are coming up against Fulham. So once again, this is actually quite a difficult one to predict. I mean, Birmingham at some point just have to get a victory under Gianfranco Zola. I mean, it just has to be a matter of time now, surely, since they finally have to break this deadlock of just being on this awful run of form, which they've currently gone under. But Fulham, coming up against Fulham, it's not going to be an easy match, and I'd like to say maybe a couple of you guys will be backing Birmingham for this one, and if any of you guys do get that right and Birmingham actually do go on and win, I'd be quite impressed with if anyone did actually back them. But I'm going to play this one safe. I'm going to go with a 3-1 victory for Fulham. I just see it being, I just think this Fulham side should have enough to see off this Birmingham team with how they're currently playing, whereas FIFA has backed a monumental scoreline. FIFA is saying that this one is going to end 4-2 to Birmingham. That is just mental for FIFA. Then going into our next game, guys, we have Blackburn Rovers, who are coming up against Queen's Park Rangers. So of course QPR coming off the back of that fantastic point they got away to Newcastle in midweek, and surely they'll just be going into this Blackburn side now with full of confidence. You know, we've seen some of the things that Ian Holloway has been able to do with this QPR side. You know, they went on a fantastic run of form not too long ago, and they'll be hoping to emulate that now and just kick on up the table, whereas Blackburn really has been quite a stop-start lately. I think that's a fair assessment of how Blackburn are currently doing at this point in time. Of course, they lost midweek to Leeds United, and it'll be a difficult game coming up against this QPR side who do look to be quite in form at this minute, but I am actually going to back Blackburn to get a point from this one. I think that it's games like this where Blackburn do need to be getting something from if they are going to avoid the drop and not be like cut adrift at the bottom or anything like that. So I'm going to say that this one's going to end as a 2-2 draw. I think both sides have questionable defending throughout the season, although I have been impressed by QPR's keeper Alex Smithies for the majority of it. But I'm going to say this one's going to end as a 2-2 draw, whereas FIFA is backing a 2-0 win to QPR. And for our next game, guys, we have Bristol City, who are coming up against Rotherham United, and this is a massive game, in my opinion, for the rest of Bristol City's season. I mean, this could be one of their most important matches they've had in recent times, really, because I do think that if they are to get a victory against Rotherham, which really they should, looking over their team, that could just provide this squad with that bit of confidence to kick on and get away from the relegation zone. However, if this Bristol City side is to lose at home to Rotherham, it could be a really sticky one for the rest of the season. I mean, and where the next points are going to come from if Rotherham are beating them at home. No disrespect to Rotherham, of course, but Bristol City needs to get 3 points from this one, in my opinion. This just has to be a victory. A point, in my opinion, isn't good enough for Bristol City in this game. So this could be a massive one. Of course, they were able to stop that losing streak they had in midweek with that point against Sheffield Wednesday, and this one I think could be a very cagey affair. So I'm just going to back Bristol City for a 1-0 victory, whereas FIFA's saying a 0-0. I'd love to know what you guys think of this one. Then for our next game, guys, we have Burton Albion, who are coming up against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So this is quite an interesting encounter, actually. Of course, Burton, really they do need to be looking at their home form now to be their, you know, backbone really to get them out of this relegation scrap, and there are a lot of sides currently battling it out in there. So Burton, you know, have a good as chance as any, really. You know, I've been quite impressed with Nigel Clough and what he's been able to do and take out of some of these players from Burton Albion. But coming up against these Wolves side, which currently I've been quite impressed with lately, I have to say that under Paul Lambert they've had some fantastic results, because that was just epitomised recently with their FA Cup victory they had over Liverpool. And for this one, I'm going to back a Wolves victory. I'm fancying Wolves for this one. I'm going to say 2-1 to Wolves in this game, whereas FIFA is saying this one will be a 0-0. Then into our next game, guys, we have Cardiff City, who are coming up against Norwich City. So at this point in time, you know, Norwich seem to have hit a really good run of form. You know, obviously they were coming off the back of that just awful spell they had in the season, which dropped them really down low into the table after the fantastic start they had to the season. But since then, they do seem to have picked that up, and it has really been Norwich's home form which has seemed to do that. So I'm being very interested to keep an eye on this result, actually, because of course Norwich's away form has been something which has been quite suspect for the majority of the season, and coming away to Cardiff isn't going to be an easy one for them. You know, my team Preston then came up against Cardiff midweek. They made it very difficult for us, and in the end they managed to get that 2-0 victory, and I was quite impressed with Cardiff in that game. So for this one, I'm going to back a 1-1 draw. I think this one is going to end as a level 1, and yeah, like I said, I can't really split these two sides with Cardiff playing at home, whereas FIFA is just about going to back a 1-0 win to Norwich. Then into our next game, guys, we have Ipswich Town, who are coming up against Reading, and for this one, really, I can't really see anything past a Reading victory. However, saying that, Ipswich have been probably similar to Blackburn, actually. They've had a very stop-start sort of season. They've been incredibly inconsistent with all of their results. So, you know, with, you know, how Ipswich have done this season, it wouldn't even surprise me, really, if they were to go ahead and lose this and win this game 3-0 and then they'll lose the next game 7-0. That's just the sort of side Ipswich have been for the majority of this season. But I am fancying Reading for this one. They've looked very good lately, and as their, you know, race for the top 6 intensifies, Reading really do need to keep themselves in that pack. So I'm going to back a 2-0 win to Reading in this one, whereas FIFA is going to back a 1-0 win to Ipswich. Then going into our next game, guys, we have Newcastle United, who are coming up against Derby County, and this is one of the games of the weekend without a question of a doubt. You know, this is a massive game for you guys to be able to keep your eye on, and Newcastle, you know, coming off the back of that very disappointing point they only got at home to QPR last time, they'll be desperate to rectify that and, you know, claim back their top spot, because they've of course been knocked out flat recently by Brighton. But coming up against this Derby side, who do look to be, you know, in form lately. You know, they've had some fantastic victories lately, and the thing about Derby lately is they've been scoring goals, and I think that is going to be a worry going into this Newcastle match. However, I don't know what it is, really. I've just got that gut feeling that Rafa Benitez will be looking for a reaction out of this Newcastle side, and they've been quite a funny side so far this season, Newcastle, because really they've won the games. They've won sort of the tough games this season, but some of the games where you think that should be an easy win for Newcastle, they've struggled in. So coming up against this Derby side is of course Steve McLaren returning to St James's Park, so if he's able to pull one off on over Newcastle fans, they will not be happy at all. But for some reason, I am going to back a Newcastle win for this one. I am fancying them to bounce back, and I'm going to back a 2-0 victory for Newcastle. However, I could, you know, just as well saying that, I could see Derby winning this one, and FIFA is actually going to back Derby for a 1-0 victory. victory. And for our next game, guys, we have Forest, who are coming up against Aston Villa, and this is actually quite a difficult one to predict yet again. I mean, Nottingham Forest late recently, after they've sacked Montagnier, really, they've had a decent run of form, and of course, with a lot of their new signings that could be implemented into this match, there's quite a bit of positivity going around Forest now, and I think that's really deserved, really, after all the shenanigans they've been going through. I mean, there is, of course, the ownership thing still looming over Nottingham Forest, but there has been a bit more positivity lately, which is nice to see over the club. And Aston Villa, of course, with their recent signing, Scott Hogan, could make his debut in this match. He'll be wanting to make an instant impact for this one, because Ross McCormack won't be able to play for Forest, being on loan from Aston Villa. And I'm going to back a 1-1 draw for this one. I think Aston Villa's away record this season isn't really anything to shout about, and Forest have been looking quite in form lately, so I'm going to back a 1-1 draw for this one, whereas FIFA is going to say this one is going to end 1-0 to Forest. Then to the games we have on Sunday, guys. First of all, we have a massive derby taking place. It's not only a derby, but it is also a massive clash at the top of the table. We have Huddersfield, who are coming up against Leeds United. So if you guys are going to make any predictions for this one, I'd love to know what you guys think of this one, really. And Huddersfield, of course, coming off the back of that fantastic performance they had against Brighton, and Leeds coming off the back of that, you know, decent victory they got against Blackburn. Both sides have just looked fantastic so far this season, and when they are both in form, they have played some phenomenal stuff this season. So it really is a tough one to call, and honestly, I can't call it. I'd love to know what you guys think of this one, but I'm going to sit on the fence for this one. I'm going to say it's going to finish 1-1. I just can't split these two sides at this point in time, whereas FIFA has gone absolutely mental with their scoreline, and he's going to back a 4-0 victory to Leeds. Now, what a result that would be. Can I see it? Who knows? And then for our last game of the weekend, guys, we have Brentford, who are coming up against Brighton. So, of course, Brighton are going to want to rectify a lot of the mistakes they made against Huddersfield last time out, and quite a difficult one, actually. You know, you'd expect this Brentford side to be a little bit more fresh, with them having a longer recovery time going into this game than Brighton will have had, but Brighton seem to be a side this season when they have lost a match, they do seem to be that sort of team which gets an instant reaction. So I am expecting them to do that. However, I am expecting also for Brentford to put up a fight in this one and to make it very difficult for Brighton. So I'm just about going to back a Brighton victory for this one. I'm going to say 1-0 Brighton, but I'd love to see Brentford get something from this match, because I think they've been quite underrated recently, of course, with coming off the back of that 3-0 victory they got against Aston Villa. I might be foolish for not backing them, but I just have an inkling that Brighton will be looking stronger in this one and looking to bounce back. So I'll say 1-0 Brighton, whereas FIFA is going against me for this one, and FIFA is saying this one's going to end 2-0 to Brentford. So there you have it, guys. There are all my score predictions for this week's action going on in the Championship, guys. So like I said at the start of the video, I'd love to know what you guys think will happen in the Championship. So in the description down below, I'll leave all the fixtures that are taking place this weekend, and I want you guys to go ahead and make your predictions. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So thank you so much for watching. So if you have enjoyed, make sure that you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you check out all the other links in the description down below. Make sure you follow me on Twitter as well, as I always tweet before I upload a video. Therefore, you'll never miss a video ever again, guys. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.